An 18-year-old dude has just graduated high school and was at the graduation ceremony. A teacher asked him for his high school quote. The teen answered, "The youth need more time to learn, while the elders need more time to speak." The class gave a round of applause and he got his picture taken, with his quote printed underneath. He received his diploma and was dismissed soon afterwards. He headed for the bus stop across the street to head home. He stood on the sidewalk waiting at a red light and watched the dozens of vehicles driving by on this nice, cloudy Friday afternoon. As he looked around, he noticed a flyer taped to the traffic pole, several flyers actually. He took the paper and skimmed through it. Exique Academy? Never heard of it. Learn skills you can't find anywhere else. Complete 5 classes, 5 months each. Master over 250 types of intelligence. Earn a doctorate degree in 2 years. Entire 2-year course is free of charge. Unlock your full potential here. Solve this puzzle to locate the school. He looked up and saw the light had finally turned green. As he began to cross, the light turned yellow. He looked both ways and noticed some degenerate making an unyielding left turn, with the driver honking his horn. The teen sprinted across the street, barely avoiding impact. He shouted obscenities and flipped off the driver, whom returned the finger. He sat on the bus bench and studied the puzzle. It was a crossword with 10 blank lines next to it. He was tired from school, so he shoved the paper in his binder to solve later. He went home and fell asleep. When he awoke the next morning, he studied the crossword puzzle, and after a painstaking 2 hours, he finally solved it. He pondered for a bit about his future. He was bored with home, but he really didn't want to look for a job. Screw it, let's see what kind of circus this place is. He persuaded his parents to let him enroll, and his dad drove him there, then he drove home. Why build a school so far out in the middle of nowhere, and why can only 100 students attend a place that is this enormous? He asked himself. As he approached the large building on a dirt road between rows of trees on this cloudy Saturday afternoon, he was greeted by a tall, mysterious woman. "Welcome, 100th pupil. You're lucky to have made it here when you did, as we will accept no more after you. Class will start on Monday at 10 a.m. Choose a dorm to live in and explore the campus in the meantime, but do not converse with any other students until Monday. Otherwise, you will be put into solitary confinement for a month. Breakfast is at 8 a.m., lunch at noon, dinner at 6. You may call me Mrs. Whammy," she said. He was perplexed by the harsh no-talking rule, but she left before he could ask what the deal was, at a shocking speed. She can move much faster than he could have guessed by her scrawny physique. Nonetheless, he obeyed and explored the campus. It had lots of sidewalks, grass, trees, fountains, and purple buildings. The place was gorgeous, a nice contrast to the gloomy beige savanna it was placed in for whatever reason. He enjoyed dinner and went to his dorm. There was a bed, lamp, desk, window, and bookshelf. The shelf was full of books of all academic fields. The only books there were for entertainment were detective novels, most of which were murder mysteries, not quite his cup of tea. He sighed and asked himself, "This is going to be a long 25 months, isn't it?" As he searched the shelf, he picked up a book from the fiction row. It read Death Note, Another Note, The Los Angeles BB Murder Cases. "I'm surprised a school has a book like this. At least the Death Note universe is somewhat interesting," he murmured to himself. He sat at the desk, turned on the lamp, and began reading. Monday, 10 a.m. 100 students sat in 10 by 10 rows in a large classroom. Mr. and Mrs. Whammy stood in front of a green chalkboard. Mr. Whammy: "First, we will go over the rules. Obviously, no vandalism of any sort, especially to books. No fighting outside of gym class. No stealing. No wandering outside your dorm between 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., as it is curfew. No graffiti, no littering, no passing notes in class, no cheating. Last but not least, do not share your name or address with anyone here. You will instead be referred to as numbers. Violation of the rules will result in solitary confinement for long periods of time. Put your hands down. Save your questions for after the lecture." Mrs. Whammy: "As for the classes, you will study the main types of intelligence, which are naturalist, musical, logical, mathematical, existential, interpersonal, intrapersonal, bodily kinesthetic, linguistic, and spatial. However, you will learn at least 240 secondary types as well." Classes will take place at 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. There are 5 classes to complete, which are D, C, B, A, and S. Starting with D, each class will be far more difficult than the previous one. Each will take 5 months to complete, except S may take far longer, depending on circumstance. Now, here are your numbers. The teachers gave each pupil a little sticky note with a number written on it. Our protagonist received the number 13. Mr. Whammy: "You may look at each other's papers and discuss it for 1 minute." 13 looked both ways. On his left, he sat next to 7. A very muscular man with a resting frown glanced at him and his paper, then looked ahead. On his right sat a very beautiful woman with a D cup, with a number 8 on her paper. She smiled at him for a second, then looked ahead. He blushed and looked away, embarrassed. He turned around to see a petite, shy, and pretty girl with a C cup look down at her desk, twiddling her thumbs. Her paper said 6. He couldn't see any other numbers, so he looked straight. After a minute of mumbling throughout the room, the teachers request silence. Mr. Whammy: "As for grades, my wife and I will keep track of your scores. However, you will never have access to your grades. No progress reports, no report cards, no return papers with marks on it. If you fail a class, you'll be sent home, allowed to try again after 2 years. This is to keep you on your toes, so no minimalist mindset. Any questions?" 13 shot up his hand and was called. 13: "Why are we forbidden to share our names or address? To be referred to as numbers sounds really dehumanizing if we make a friend. We'll want to exchange addresses to keep in touch. Also, the penalty sounds incredibly harsh for such a victimless offense." Mr. Whammy: You really ought to figure these things out for yourself, but I'll give you a hint. People tend to go insane under our tutelage, and if you happen to make an enemy or two, you'll want them to have as little information on you as possible. It's for safety reasons. Any other questions? 13. Yes. Why are our numbers not in order of our seating positions or time of arrival, especially since I was the 100th to arrive here? Mr. Whammy. We measure everyone by appearance and demeanor. Each integer has its own meaning, and those meanings are given proportionately to what to each of you. What each one means is something you'll have to figure out on your own. Anything else? No, that's all. He didn't need to figure out the ones he saw, as he already knew. 7 is the number for God, and that man's ripped build looked godly, not someone he would want to meet in a dark alley. 8 means new beginnings, so perhaps there is much more to her than beauty and charisma, creativity perhaps. 6 is the number for man, but she is not a man, so that's weird. Maybe it was her shy and timid impression. Such traits are applied to mankind and is certainly less than divine. So she may be given 6 based on that. 13 means bad luck. Between that and the school's odd, harsh rules and lack of phone signal, he really started having second thoughts on coming here. But at least he doesn't have to search for a job. Mrs. Whammy. If we're quite done here, let's begin the class. We'll start with math since that's a fun one to wake up to in the morning. They gave each pupil a sheet of paper with 10 questions. 1. Find the missing number. 3, 9, 27, 81, question mark, 729. Find x. 7 times 12 divided by 3. Solve. 9 exclamation mark. 4. Find the area. 5. Solve. 12 exclamation mark. Find x. 5 to the third power times 72 divided by 8. Find the perimeter of this shape. Mary is 3 times older than her brother, who is 8 years old. How old will she be when her brother is 40? How long for Mach 1 to make one lap around the equator? What is 69% of 420? Since 13 was fresh out of 12th grade, he solved every question with somewhat ease to his relief. Once everyone turned in their papers, they were given lessons on Algebra 2 on the chalkboard. 10:36 a.m. Now for existentialism, they were given sheets with 10 questions on them. Do you believe in God? Why or why not? Do you believe in evolution? Why or why not? What is the purpose of human existence? What happens after we die? Do you believe in reincarnation? Why or why not? What do you think is the fate of humanity in 100 years? Why do you think so? 11:12 a.m. Linguistic. The class studied Japanese for a second language. 36 minutes later, they had learned the entire hiragana alphabet. 11:48 a.m. The class briefly go over questions or concerns over the day, then head to the cafeteria, making it there by noon. They had veggie salad, grapes, cheese ravioli, and green tea for lunch. 12:36 p.m. musical. There are 88 keys, 52 white and 36 black on a piano. White keys produce notes from A to G. Black keys produce sharp and flats, which sound halfway between standard notes. They practiced hand positions and basic melodies. 1:12 p.m. spatial. The class had to assemble a set of colorful wooden pieces, 45 pieces, to make the following shapes: square, triangle, rhombus, diamond, trapezoid, and hexagon with every piece. Then make 4 new shapes. The teachers studied the students, writing things down with a plain expression. 1:48 p.m. logical. Everyone was given the option to play chess with someone or fill out a worksheet solving patterns. Most chose chess. 13 played chess with 7 and won twice. 7 looked angry and then looked toward the chalkboard. 2:26 p.m. interpersonal. Ready or not, they had to switch subjects. Unfinished games and papers were put away. Everyone was assigned to make conversation with one another, any topics of their choosing. 3:02 p.m. intrapersonal. Everyone was to write a page of self-reflection and turn it in. 3:38 p.m. naturalist. Everyone went outside to study and identify the plants and animals in the surrounding environment. I guess this explains the school's rural location, 13 thought. 4:14 p.m. bodily kinesthetic. Everyone had to run 5 miles in 45 minutes sharp. Having no way to keep track of his progress, 13 jogged at what felt like 7 miles per hour from his experience on a treadmill. By 5 p.m., class was finally over. He was very dehydrated and his heart hurt. He's used to resting after each mile, so 5 miles non-stop really sucked. He chugged water at the nearest fountain and coughed a lot due to bronchoconstriction. At 6 p.m., he had supper. The meal was bean, cheese, and rice burritos, cantaloupe slices, and hot cocoa. He went to his dorm and noticed 7 was his neighbor on the left and 8 on the right. 7 wanted nothing to do with him, and 8 was too attractive to talk to without distracting thoughts clouding his ability to talk, so he remained in his room. There was so little to do: reading, drawing, looking out the window, or sleeping. He read for an hour, doodled for a while, then looked out the window. Other than bodily kinesthetic, the day was almost easy. If all of Class D is to be like this, he was confident he could pass D and C. But when he tried to imagine the difficulty of B, A, and especially S, he got nervous, so he stopped. The next 3 days were almost the same. Friday was almost the same until 4:14 p.m. Every student was to spar with a partner for 5 minutes. They wore headgear, MMA gloves, body armor, knee pads, and elbow pads. 13 had to face 7, much to 13's dismay. As they clashed, 7 used kickboxing, while 13 used boxing and taekwondo. 13 landed a few low kicks, but all his punches were blocked, dodged, or countered. He tried to kick his face, but 7 caught his leg and swept him off his foot. As he fell, 7 started stomping on him, and 13 got back up with great difficulty. 7 threw a punch. 13 tried to block, but the attack slipped through and landed on his nose. His nose bursted with blood as it spilled all over his shirt, and tears streamed down his face while sweat stung his eyes. The match still had 1 more minute, so he had to block and dodge until then. Once it was over, 13 plugged his nose with toilet paper. Seven laughed the first time he saw him smile, and suddenly the resting frown wasn't so bad anymore. 13 flipped him off. 7 stopped laughing and grinning, then glared at him with an intensity extreme enough to make 13 regret his choice. For the next 40 minutes, they had to reflect and meditate on their match to ensure progress for the next bout. They were dismissed at 5 p.m., had dinner at 6, and socialized until curfew. Finally, the weekend has arrived. 13's face and body were sore, but he was otherwise happy. He got over his shyness and attraction for 8 and 6, and was able to have normal chats with them. 8 was outgoing, charming, and extroverted. 6 was shy but sweet. He explored the campus, then went to his room. He had finished reading Death Note, Another Note, The Los Angeles BB Murder Cases, and L Changed the World. He loved them. He moved on to Sherlock Holmes novels. He started reading A Study in Scarlet. 4 months and 3 weeks later, everyone must take final exams for Class D. This concludes part 1 of Exique Academy. I would read the entire thing in one go, but my phone storage sucks, so I have to cut this up into 9 parts. This is my personal favorite story, so hopefully people like it. Alright, that's about it. See ya.